Call this meeting to order. You ready, Patty? I didn't even go there. I'm sorry. Okay, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order then. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the sea symbol of perfect friendships among united cultures.
So mine was lower and we gave it to Helen. Somebody's been.
They can't pay the carpet, so I'm looking at two chairs. Oh. Okay.
All right, adoption of agenda.
Mr. President, members of the board, I recommend that we adopt the agenda as is.
All right, so we have a recommendation from Superintendent Salazar to approve the agenda as is. I'll need a motion.
I move that we adopt the agenda.
All right, I'll need a second.
I'll second.
All members in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes, thank you. All right, moving on to our next item, which is closed executive session. I recommend that the board convene to executive session to discuss limited personnel matters as permitted under section 10-15-1, sections H and 2, and also to discuss possible litigation with the district's attorneys as permitted under section 10-15-1, H7. I'll need a motion.
I move that the board convene in closed executive session to discuss limited personnel matters as permitted under section 10-15-1H2 and also discuss possible litigation pending lawsuit with the district's attorney as permitted under section 10-15-1H7. No other topics will be discussed and no other business matters will be conducted.
All right, do we have a second to go in?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. We'll need to do a roll call vote to enter into executive session. And start with Ms. Burns.
Wendy Burns, I vote yes.
Linda Hudson, I vote yes.
Albert Chavez, aye.
Elizabeth Howells, aye.
Charles Armijo, aye. All right, we will enter into executive session at 12:04. No topics other than those mentioned were discussed, and no business matters or no decisions made in the executive session. But I will need a motion to reconvene or to get out of executive session.
I make a motion that we get out of our executive session.
All right, so I have a motion. I'll need a second.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second to exit, close executive session. All members in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes. All right, moving on. Welcome to everybody. I think we're excited. I think everyone here could agree that we're excited to have some moisture. Something that is long been missed. It's been nice to, other than I think, we're kind of getting ready to see the occurrence of weeds.
They're gonna be bad.
We've been lucky so far, thus far, to have abundance of weeds. But nonetheless, welcome to everybody, and we're going to continue. Moving on to approval of minutes.
Mr. President, members of the board, I recommend that you approve the minutes from the regular board meeting of May 17th, 2022.
All right, so we have a recommendation from Superintendent Salazar to approve the regular meeting minutes from May 17th, 2022. Any questions? Modifications, changes, any errors? So if there's no questions, I will need a motion for approval. And I'll need a second.
Second.
So-
Second bit.
All right, so I have a motion and a second. All members in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes. Since we were in there, I wonder. Well, I'll just move on. Moving on to citizen comment. So there were none that signed up.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
I wasn't here at the beginning when they went into executive session. The room was closed, so I didn't sign up, but I do have some comments.
Okay, I think it's better. I think we should. Let's get into the form and then we'll get you in there. There's a little bit different procedures, so we'll definitely make an exception from this.
Thank you.
I was looking, I think I have that to do Mr. Powers.
All right, now, do you want me to give you a heads up at minute 45 for the 2 minutes?
Is it a 2 minute?
It's 2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, please.
Okay, very well. Go ahead and let you start speaking.
I'm here to comment about the demolition of the Edgewood Elementary School south portion of that campus. In the facilities master plan that was adopted by this board in 2017, it says that MSD realized that the community with partnership is an essential part of the success of the district, makes every effort to involve local community, which they did in the stakeholder process. Since then, it talks about a difficult decision for the Edgewood community to shut down that school. It's very contentious. In the process, you all promised that Edgewood Elementary South building would be a community center for the town of Edgewood. It was involved in the Edgewood Commons master plan, which was done with the state land office on that property, as well as the town and part of our comp plan. So it's central, it's the central core, it's supposed to become the central core of Edgewood, which didn't have a core before that. So in keeping with that, the Edgewood people are upset about this. They don't want that building demolished. I know you all have voted for it in contravention of the promises that were made to the Edgewood people. I've heard some comments from the Edgewood board, or from this board regarding Edgewood people, comments that were kind of disparaging about who are these people to come in and, tell us what we should do with that building. Well, it sits right in the heart of their community. So they are the parents of the pre-K students that you're kicking out of that facility. They're your constituents. They're the parents of the students that you have a duty to. That's who these people are. They're the people that overthrew the form of government by a turnout of over 300% of normal turnout, voted 70% to change that form of government because they weren't being listened to. So I would encourage you to listen to them. They're also the people that will be voting for these seats at the next election. So I would encourage that you actually listen to them. These are people that want a voice and are willing to do what it takes to get a voice in their own community. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to superintendent board comments, recommendations. Principal and athletic director board reports.
Pretty slim pickings today. We only had a couple of reports. Any questions for Mr. Adams or Mr. Anaya? We've been playing lots of ball and lots of camps with our kiddos. So,
Any questions for someone please?
Just keep up the good work.
I guess mine is Mr. Adams. Mr. Adams is here. Not so much a question, but I did have several parents reach out, very pleased with graduation. Even up to a few days ago, just thankful for the recognizing of our military, our students entering the military. I did get feedback on that, and they were very appreciative that the district takes the time to acknowledge. I thought that was really neat. But as well as just, recognizing their kids and making it a special day, so I just wanted to thank you for that. So.
I'll pass that on to the people who did all the work.
Well, I attended the law conference, and it's just, that's, I could.
Yeah, well, we'll move on. That was really the only thing I had for
Oh, okay.
principals, but we'll go ahead and move on to board president and board of education, so if people have some comments.
So I'd like to say that I went to the law conference and went through the PFSA for the new board members, kind of learned where all that stood, and then I'd like to thank Antoinette because I did go to the finance and audit committee meeting and was like, oh, I pretty much know all this. So thank you for giving us that heads up because it was really helpful to just kind of be able to get more of an understanding, but already have the base. And then our board retreat had, it was great. It was great getting together, brainstorming with everybody, and so.
Any other comments?
I would just comment on the board retreat as well, that I thoroughly enjoyed interacting with the staff and our administrative staff and the board together and getting to know each of you a little more and participating in all the activities that were put before us. It was good.
I see the true us.
Yeah.
Well, like Rob said, thanks Natalie for really putting everything together.
Yes, that's true. Thank you.
The goal setting was really amazing, and I think we were all on the same track and realized right where we want to be and where we're going as a district with the students, and I think that was pretty impressive. So it was a good day.
Well, I think what's really nice is just picking up the pieces post-COVID,
Yeah.
and really focusing again, making students, getting all of our priorities realigned again back and putting students first. I think that's important. I think we get caught up in all of the muck, on the day-to-day, and so it was nice to be with, the new members and kind of just, see why we do it, why we put ourselves through what we put ourselves through, and then to know that we are working with some very professional people. That's the other piece of this that, I think as we've come out of the legislature, the last few legislatures sessions, that, we're trying to definitely hold our educators to a new level, but also acknowledge their professionalism. And let them do their jobs. I think that's something that's nice. We're often told what we're supposed to do from the legislature. Meanwhile, they're the professionals. They're the degree professionals that make it all happen. So I definitely appreciated that. And then sort of reflective, I think I've mentioned it before, from the law conference, I was able to present on one of the roundtables. It was very interesting just to see, and if I've said this before, I apologize, but at the same time, it was very refreshing just to kind of see the benchmarks that we've hit on, I spoke on some of the technology front, and it was nice to see, where we're at and where we're going. It was nice to share that with other districts. At the same time, also recognizing the struggles that so many other districts are being faced with. I mean, anywhere from budget, inability to fund technology, or even have access to professional development, professional delivery of their rollout of technology. So, I know it's repetitive, but it is nice. It was very humbling, once again, to hear that from them. So, other than that, I think we're good.
Can I just back up to the graduation? Not having any kids in school here personally, it was just a joy to be involved in all of those activities for graduation and to see how hard the kids that graduated worked and how they excelled, and the scholarships that were awarded and the plans to go forward are good, and they're all a credit to you and to the teaching that they're getting. So, and I've enjoyed all the reports that you are giving throughout the year, and all the programs and encouragement and challenges that you give the kids is just, it's very good to see and very heartwarming to know that this is a top, I would say, 5A school district.
We think so. Yeah, we work really
I
hard
just
at
have
it.
a question on the goal setting and stuff that we worked on. When, for the newer members, when are we going to review that again and see where we're at, just so that we'll.
So we're gonna give you the draft today, and then we'll bring them back in July to, during work session, and we can tweak or anything else. We think we have a pretty good handle on them, and kind of got everybody's input and reflection, and even since the board retreat to now, take them home, look at them, make some notes, and then we'll bring them back in July.
And then we'll have those for our quarterly talks with you.
Yes, correct. And we'll also put those on the website so that everybody can see.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so it's not just something like we went and did and then we walk away from it.
Yeah, there's follow through.
Yeah, we'll keep following
It
through
grows.
till, until you're like, wow, how much follow through did we
Yeah,
have?
we're gonna talk about this again.
Yeah, we'll keep doing it.
Thank you for that clarification.
Very good. All right. There's no other comments or questions for principals or what? I think we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Okay, we have Ted, let's see, Ted, I never get your last name, Weber here. Ted is from Groundwork Studio, he is our landscape architect. We did open the bids from for the multi-sports complex, and he's gonna share a little bit of where we're at. Natalie is gonna share just so that you have, and people in the audience can just see what we're kind of talking about and kind of where we think we need to go from here. So Ted, I'll turn it over to you.
Absolutely. Do the flat one. I think that's the best. Yeah. Thank you, Teresa. Thanks, members of the board, for having me up to talk about the project. So bids came in on the 8th, and we had one acceptable bid. It was high, though. It was about 20% high. So that's kind of what I'm here to talk to you all about today, sort of what our options are for proceeding, and then amongst yourselves, which ones seem the best. So what we put out for bid was a nice package of 2 fields, dedicated baseball and softball fields. The softball field had an extended outfield to accommodate a varsity soccer field, and then the baseball field outfield was sized to accommodate a practice field. And for context, the art center's there, kind of see it in the lower left-hand corner of the plan there, so it's just right north of the new gymnasium facilities there at the high school. You can see the track there, kind of faded in on the right. So as I mentioned, the one bid came in from Bradbury Stam. It was a good, thorough bid. They did their homework. They had also reached out to some of the other potential offerers to get sub quotations for their price, and so they're really well poised to take on the job, but right now the price is 20% high. And the way we bid it was just a lump sum, so we don't even necessarily know project components wise what they're thinking. Obviously, synthetic turf is the big ticket item here. It is an industry with some volatile pricing on the materials, with fuel costs and the raw costs of producing the synthetic material being high. That obviously accounts for a good portion of our under budgeting. Also, what we've heard from contractors, the 2 things that are going out the fastest in their mind are fencing and electrical. We didn't end up with a ton of electrical on the project. We pushed things like the lighting off to a future phase. So we had some, outlets at the dugouts, that kind of stuff. But fencing, we have fences and windscreens all the way around the entirety of the synthetic fields, and then we also have fencing between this facility and the adjacent football facility so that they could be ticketed separately, essentially. So lots and lots of fencing on this job. And so with the bids being high, you know, procurement rules still kind of dictate the next moves. Because the bid is high, it doesn't have to be accepted. Right now, it exceeds available funds. So, and if we reject it, then we're supposed to put it back out to bid, issue a new invitation for bid. If we put out the documents as is, and either no bids come in or only rejectable bids come in, at that point, we no longer need to bid it. We can approach offerers, we can approach contractors to get a best available market price. So with that in mind, you know, if we wanna pull this off for the allotted money, I think that's gonna be the best. We definitely feel like that's gonna be the best course of action. Rebid it, see if a couple more people come to the table, and ultimately jump through the hoop of putting it back out to bid so that we can just approach people and be in a better position to negotiate. You know, that said, I was talking to Superintendent Salazar earlier, and Bradbury's price is not going to come in lower if they rebid, I don't think. Prices are going up every single day, right? And so if we were able to accept the bid, we would still be able to, you know, see what we could do to tighten the project up once we're in negotiation, or, you know, once the contract is awarded at that bid. And we can see what we can do to make up the budgetary shortfall.
Ted, did you tell me that you can negotiate the 10%, up to 10% of the bid?
That I'm not totally clear on. I mean, so the way it's worded, procurement and purchasing are kind of treated differently. Like, you can purchase from a sole offerer, say for professional services, that kind of stuff. And so that's the way the 10% is worded. And so I think we would just have to accept the bid as is. We'd be on the hook for that. But then if there were change orders that brought the price down, you know, there's no guarantee of that. But we can negotiate the bid price down from my reading of it. At the very least, because we're outside of 10%. And I'm thinking also because this is really a procurement, not a purchase. Kind of seems like it. There is one other option, which seems kind of third best to us at this point, which would be to change the construction documents, do something on our end to try to value engineer the documents that go out, you know, say, make the fields a little bit smaller. Because of Title IX, they'll build both the softball and baseball facilities at the same time, but maybe the soccer facility doesn't get built with this project, that kind of thing. Kind of what I mentioned before is the way that we bid this was just one qualified bid that gave us the most opportunity to evaluate not exactly similar turf products. Every manufacturer has their own little selling points and shortcomings. So we don't entirely know nuts and bolts what's contributing maybe more to the price than we'd like it to, let's say. Whether that's, you know, drainage improvements or whatever. So that's why that's kind of our third, you know, of the choices, our third preferred choice, just because we don't have perfect information to even do that value engineering in a way that is guaranteed to work.
One of the things I just want to point out to you
Sure.
that, for the board, just a reminder, that the ad alternates that would be on top of that bid price would be the scoreboards, would be the batter's eye, and gravel instead.
And yeah, switching out some revegetation seeding to some crusher fines, and then also installing the conduit for future lighting so that no pavement has to get ripped up. There's already a pipe to just pull that through. No electrical through. And really looking at all those alternates, they were about what we expected, and they were really pre-bid everything we could think of that wasn't going to be a gaping hole, like no bleachers or building the dugouts there, you know, something like that.
Did you cut off third base?
Yeah, you know, like there's only so much to cut off.
Does the board have any questions
Does
specific?
that include landscaping, is that landscaping?
Yeah, and
all
you
around
know,
and
for the
stuff?
majority, the landscaping is either revegetation or some gravel, just to keep the dust down, and then, you know, lots of tree plantings with the idea to help with, to create a windbreak.
And historically, in our district, we haven't gone the extra mile with that stuff, and it is a problem. We, you know, later and having to do it and really just tying it up in a nice package. Landscaping makes, just even a little landscaping makes all the difference in the world, so.
Well, and it also lends to better maintenance too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, it's not, it doesn't look like you put a field of drinks out in the middle of the cornfield.
And we have no, you know, architectural shade planned for people watching games, so that's kind of our plan there too, is, you know, use that to create a nice viewing environment.
So if we reject these bids and put it out for a rebid, what are we looking timeline wise? Let's say that we got the perfect bid, and what would we be looking at with our timeline?
So the timeline that came in with Bradbury's bid was expecting a notice to proceed on 7/11, and then wrapping up on February 7th of next year. Our bid period was 3 weeks this last time. So optimistically, maybe we'd still be done by the end of February 2023. I'd add a week or two to that, so probably looking at mid-March at the fastest. But that's also, you know, with their timeline, maybe someone would come in sooner. But, you know, that'd be my expectation, is that to add at least 3 to 4 weeks on that construction schedule. Use end of February, middle of March. If we have to reject the next bids and then get into negotiations, it's kind of anybody's guess, but
Soccer, it'll be soccer season.
it'll be soccer season at that point. Yeah, and, you know, and maybe inflation will be curbed by then.
Right. We can always be optimistic.
But
Questions?
First of all, we're supposed to see another huge spike in inflation in a few weeks. So that's not gonna get any better. But you always just go with your first bid.
Right?
No. No, not in this case. I do believe that we do need to do something, that we do need to move those fields. They were temporarily put over there 20-some years ago. They're a maintenance nightmare, with water issues everywhere. We can't get rid of the synthetic turf. That's just the right thing to do. Correct. But going green, so to speak, it's not cheap. So, but we do need to move them. I do feel like soccer did okay at the football field this past year. And maybe we need to leave soccer there for a while. But at least they have a better place.
I think that we just need to rebid it. Go ahead and get the city to come up with what I was expecting to.
I think rebid as well, but I think that, you know, we really should be contingency planning, you know,
If they don't come in. Yeah,
on this, you know, and prioritize maybe, you know, the soccer fields. I mean, there's no doubt that the situation with our current baseball and softball fields, you know, that there's definitely attention that is needed.
Has been for
And
years.
has been, you know, I mean, some of the goals we were hoping to achieve by moving it, you know, with shared locker rooms and being able to utilize, you know, some of our renovated space. I think, like Ms. Howells has said, you know, we kind of need to not lose too much focus, but at the same time, I think we're gonna have to really look at maybe some contingency
I'm
plan.
not saying that we're going to focus on it, I'm just saying that we need to rebid it to get.
Oh, yeah, to get it in,
Right,
right?
and see what comes to that.
It just,
Another thing is that we have a practice field and a real baseball field. We both seriously need both of them.
No, it's a practice soccer field,
It's a
Mr.
practice
Chavez.
field, okay.
Yeah.
Because the practice girls will have
Okay.
to practice at the same.
Okay. That's the question, do we really need both of them if we do? Okay.
And you know, that was one of the things that we kind of talked about is the smaller field in the baseball field, the outer field, if that would suffice as a soccer field, but I don't think that it's quite big enough to do tournaments and stuff for varsity, is it, Joe? So it's a good practice field, or if it's, you know, a secondary field, so when one team's, you know, playing on the varsity field, that they can practice in the other, but and that field doesn't cost any more, because it's just restriping the outer field, so, and utilizing that space correctly, so.
Just two things to do, we rebid it, we just move on.
that's it, yeah.
You know, if y'all don't think it's gonna change any difference, it's not gonna make difference on the rebidding, we must just as well move forward then. That's all we
I
got.
think we should try it. I'm optimistic.
Well, and I think the other
In the
piece of this,
rebidding? Yeah.
I think the other piece of this that we have to be cautious, and I know you all are aware, but, you know, this was sort of what I would call a short cycle bond cycle, you know, we didn't go out for the full, you know, our allocation wasn't for the full disbursement, so we need to think this through, you know,
Yeah.
and so I think we need to maximize all of that.
Right.
And so, I think if it were otherwise and our economy looked a little different, I think we could maybe swallow that pill, but I'm not sure I'm ready to swallow that pill.
I would just say that we'll let them do the job that they cut the person.
We're all in.
We're all in it, I'm afraid.
So when you say go out for a rebid again, and we know that it's very expensive and we may need to cut corners, so present it as it is now for, just to see if somebody else is willing to do it for less, or are you gonna adjust it and put it out for rebid?
We would not adjust it, it would have to go out in.
As is,
exactly as
okay,
is, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, or to get that second part of
Yeah.
provision, which is
Okay.
sort of market. And I think value engineering with sort of a preferred contractor in hand that could work out really well in this one, just because they know how to build it.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're seeing. Yeah.
Well, and honestly, it's kind of like, in their defense, it's kind of like they don't know what prices are gonna be from day to day on anything, or, you know, it's crazy, the volatility, so, you know, it may look a little bit different.
It's like when he was talking a while ago that they could probably get it done by last of February, maybe that green March of next year. I sit here and I think it depends on what they can get. You know, a lot of this material is
That's
not,
driven,
you
yeah.
can't get,
You
you
can't
just
get
walk out there to Walmart or into Home Depot and buy what you need to buy. It doesn't happen that way anymore. So I was thinking, you know, if we're gonna do it, we might as well start getting something done right away, because now it's gonna be a year or two before we get it done.
All right.
What is the window for a rebid? How, what does that look like?
We're looking at it 3 weeks, is that what we talked about?
Yeah, and so we'll see, you know, I'll follow up with Antonio later today. We'll start getting things in order, see when the earliest we could get the advertisement out. And then, you know, we'll go ahead and get them posted again. And the advantage this time, hopefully, is that since people had a little bit longer to think about it, hopefully they're still thinking about it a little bit. And yeah, maybe we'll get one or two more bids.
And maybe a rebid will be incentive to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Sharpen their pencils.
Yes.
And one of the provisions we allowed was for people to submit as equals, but they had to do it pretty quick. And so, you know, maybe people come up with a few more options to run past us to lower their rates.
Very good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Mr. Miller. So, do you have a recommendation for us?
I do. I recommend that we reject the current bid due to the price exceeding identified funds, and we go out to a rebid.
All right, so we have a recommendation from Superintendent Salazar to reject the current bid and to, what she said.
Because it exceeds the funds identified, and then we rebid. There you go.
I will motion that we, did you want me
No, so we've got a motion.
to? Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, so we have a motion to reject the bid. Is there, I'll need a second.
I'll say, okay, yeah.
So we have a motion and a second. All right. So all members in favor say aye.
Aye.
Back to the drawing board.
Now we're back to, or the pencil.
Yeah.
Well, that drug was already done.
All right, moving on to update instructional calendar.
So if you recall, when we adopted the calendar for this instructional year, we had tentatively put in 3 PD days. We had requested grant funding from the K-12 Plus from the state. We only received enough funding for 2 additional PD days. So there was a lot of ask, which is good because that means people across the state are being innovative, and we're actually pretty thankful that we even got it since we are in an extended learning district. They were making priorities to other districts that hadn't done anything. So we were pleased with the $150,000 that we received. So what that will do is October 14th will not be a PD day on the calendar. So if you can see, the PD days were September 23rd, October 14th, and February 17th. We will be taking off October 14th, and that will be a holiday for the staff and students, so a fall break is what that will be. Since we are changing the instructional calendar, we would like to have that voted on again. It really doesn't affect any students, parents, it's the staff, and particularly some of our 10 and 11 month staff that their contract was set to include that day, so we're giving them 3 different options. They could either take that day off and use general leave, they can work that day with nobody there, or they can start their contract a day early. So we'll be sending that out this afternoon after it's adopted so that they can choose which to do on that. Yeah. So it is my recommendation that you approve the updated instructional calendar to reflect October 14th as a day off. We'll call it a fall break holiday.
So we have a recommendation from Superintendent Salazar to approve the updated instructional calendar to reflect the change on October 14th to be used as a day off. Any questions? If there are no questions on the motion,
I so move. Did I say that?
okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second. All members in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
And this, just to cut 2 quick updates, redistricting, we will be voting on redistricting in the July meeting. And we have posted it on our webpage, so community members can go to the webpage and look at it, and we've provided Patty's direct number and her questions, her comments. So she's our official note taker. And so if anybody want her cell phone number, I'll give it to you. So we will be doing that. Natalie and I are going to tag team just real quickly. And actually I'm going to let her do it. It's kind of like you want me to be van and pass out. If we make copies for the board, for the action steps, we want to give you the draft of them that you can take home and look at.
Thank you.
So we'll bring these back just for one final preview. So this is from the work we did at the board retreat. And that kind of leads into Natalie's board report, I believe. So if you want to share, Ms. Natalie, kind of where our draft is, yeah.
Mr. President, members of the board, so what we did was we took all of the feedback and the action steps that each team agreed upon at the retreat, and we also took back the feedback of changing those words in the goals. And so please look this over. I will just go over it fairly quickly. So student achievement and growth, MESD will implement transformational, that was a change word, instructional systems that lead to improved student academic performance. Action step 1, all staff will engage in systematic professional learning communities focused on the 4 questions of learning communities. Number 1, what do we want students to learn? How do we know if they have learned it? What do we do when they do not? And what do we do if we do when they do, and what do we do if they do not? Our evaluation will be, and progress monitoring will be meeting schedules, agendas, evidence of the data that teams discuss and use to drive instruction in those meetings, and assessments that teachers use in their instructional cycle. Timeline will be ongoing, and people responsible will be all staff and site-based leadership. Action step 2, all instructional staff will use data to make instructional decisions, and that's that teaching instructional cycle that we use and have implemented in the district for many years. We will use assessment data, PLC notes and agendas, and then the use of Schoology because we can track proficiency on standards. All teachers and site-based leadership. The third action step will be all MESD staff will participate in ongoing professional development for engaging instructional strategies. The team, and from all of the feedback at the table, were really invested in that engagement strategies for instruction. So that one was very highly marked, wanting to be on an action step.
Ms. Natalie, would you mind passing your computer to Antoinette and Todd and let them then scroll up so that while you talk they can.
My multitasking is not working today.
Thank you. We want the audience to be able to see you.
Thank you. So completion of engagement PD for every teacher, and person responsible will be site-based leadership and the director of learning services. Moving on to the technology goal. This one had a change word also. MESD will embrace the transformational use of educational technology. Action step 1, all staff will participate in differentiated professional development related to transformational technology use. This will be district and school professional development schedules and completed professional development sessions. And it will be ongoing throughout the year with the Ed Tech department, site leadership, and instructional staff in being involved. Action step 2, all instructional staff will achieve the T2 transformational use of technology in their instructional practices. This is a hefty goal. Is Chris in the room? She's not in the room. We had a long conversation about this, but we're going for it. So we will use the T3 and the ITU rubric that she has found, and she will work with site-based leadership to work through that rubric, and then with her and her partner going in classrooms just to give feedback to teachers. It will be ongoing throughout the year with the Ed Tech department, site leadership, and instructional staff. And then action step 3, MESD will prioritize GO bond funding to provide up-to-date classroom standards for hardware and software. And that will be based off of election results, of course, and district administration and the MESD school board. For safety and security, the goal was not changed. To ensure safe and secure environment for all district students, staff, and visitors, and to ensure the school district is prepared to effectively respond to all emergencies that might affect safety or security of students and staff. Action step 1, each building or department will conduct a vulnerability check monthly. The evaluation and progress measurement will be a completed checklist with appropriate questions. And it will be done monthly by principals and directors. Action step 2, all staff will be provided a flip chart of needed emergency responses for all specific emergencies. The evaluation will be the completed flip charts, and they will be by August 2022, and the people responsible will be the ERT chairs. And I believe we have an example provided by Ms. Melissa. In action step 3, MESD will continue to consistently promote interagency collaboration to ensure school safety. and that will be evaluated by agendas and meeting notes and happened monthly by the ERT chairs. The last goal was the goal that the team at the table wanted to change. After some conversations, I believe, and thoughts and just kind of processing all of that, we landed on this. So this is a huge piece that we would like your feedback on. So student resiliency and perseverance. MESD will continue to implement a framework for instruction and training in the areas of SEL that prioritizes the well-being of individuals and the collective community. So please process that and provide feedback. Action step 1, all MESD staff will build and sustain intentional relationships with students and families. The evaluation will be increased student and parent engagement and ongoing, it will be ongoing in all staff. I would really like to fine tune, because that's not measurable, the increased relationships. So I want to fine tune how we can measure that. Action step 2, MESD will provide a district toolbox of SEL strategies and supports to assist teachers in integrating SEL in their classroom instruction. It will be evaluated by the completion of a toolkit available to all district staff, and the people responsible will be district administration and the SEL leadership team.
And that action step 3 was very similar, that's intentionally left blank, so.
So do we have, or maybe, I'm trying to see if it's in our previous board packets, is there the previous version? Would it be possible for you to email it to
I
us?
can,
Okay.
yes.
And so take the next couple of weeks, think about it, process it, and then we'll come back and visit it, relook at it in July, okay? And so then, do you have other stuff in your board report?
Any questions for Mr. Maryland? Board report? Letting you off easy.
Thank you.
I have one comment about I was just thinking of where you have increased student and parent engagement. I feel like we were really doing a good job with that prior to COVID, and not sure how we were measuring it at that point, but that might be a good spot to go back to, because there was a lot of times, parents were randomly getting phone calls, and it wasn't just, hey, your kid was caught in the bathroom doing something with a cigarette, or, it was now like, hey, your kid was caught doing really great on a test, or they've been studying really well, or they're actually being really kind to another student who's going through a hard time. But I'm not sure how we were measuring it then, but I just remember that the high school specifically was
Tracking all the comments.
doing a really good job of that.
Yes, Mr. President, Ms. House, there were some schools that were doing really well at tracking each time they had a Google form, and they would plug in just every time a teacher made contact with parents, and so they did have that. We can look at that and have sites create a system that works for them. And also I was thinking about surveys, to not only students or not only families and parents, but students, looking at, do teachers know their names and, are
That's a good idea.
those types of things.
Right.
It's very important, and that's a huge telltale sign about relationships. It's just as simple as,
Especially when
using
we're
the student's name.
trying to catch those students that are falling between the cracks, and those are the ones we, trying to catch them and get them graduating also.
Is that when we were using like Class Dojo and some of that, I think that was giving parents feedback as well?
Yes. And many teachers still use Class Dojo. I just don't, we don't see, globally, we don't see that impact or the reporting of that. And not all teachers.
I keep
Yeah.
thinking about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to business, consent agenda finance.
So we have quite a few purchase orders over $20,000. They are blanket purchase orders for the school year. So of all the things that come up over the year, it's just one big, whether it be for propane, electricity, those type of things. The only thing, when I looked through these, and Ms. Young, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that Stout Hardware Floor and Company is the only one that is not a blanket, for over the years, that one is for the refinishing of our 2 middle school floors and our high school gym floor, but the rest of those are blanket, is that correct?
That is
So I just wanted to point that out before I made the recommendation that you approve the consent agenda items 1 and 2.
All right, we have a recommendation from Superintendent Salazar to approve consent agenda finance items 1 through 2. Any questions?
The RBC capital markets, that's just for the bonds and the
Yes.
estimate.
So we pay them for the work they've done this year, but if we sell bonds next year, we can probably go that's to have that in place with information.
Because typically I don't remember seeing that kind of listed out.
We're getting better. We're getting better.
This is cool. This is really cool.
Any other questions, discussion? All right, if there's no questions or discussion, we'll go ahead and look for a motion. And a second.
I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All members in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to RFP.
So we have 2 RFPs for Mr. McLeave. One is the dairy products for the year, and the other is the student services produce or products. Do you want to share anything about those, Mr. McLeave, before we approve? No? The milk's still white and still doesn't have no fat in it.
Yeah, Mrs. Salazar, Mr. Armijo, members of the board. These are RFPs that were procured by, the milk bid was by Los Lunas Schools. The commercial bid was put out by Santa Fe Schools, but we're part of a co-op that maximizes our purchasing power. And so we're able to work with them. I was on both of the evaluation committees for those RFPs, able to do our best to check out the pricing on those. And with our increase of 5 additional school districts into our co-op, our purchasing power is now almost $9 million compared to what our district would be able to put out there by itself. Is very significant difference. So our pricing is solid in these 2 RFPs. So I would recommend that, from my perspective, you would accept those RFPs.
Thank you. I remember back in the day when we got to pick chocolate or white, and it was like whole milk. It was good. So, Mr. President, members of the board, I recommend that you approve RFP 81-22-03 for dairy products.
So we have a recommendation from Superintendent Salazar to approve RFP 81-22-03 for dairy products. Any questions? There are no questions. We need a motion.
I move that we go to approve dairy products.
All right, I'll need a second.
I'll second that.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All members in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Okay, Mr. President, members of the board, I recommend that you approve RFP 81-22-04 for school nutrition and food service products.
All right, so we have a recommendation from Superintendent Salazar to approve RFP 81-22-04 for school nutrition and food service products. Any questions? I would just say that it's nice to see that growing, that it's gained steam and buying power. Definitely seeing the migration and progression on it, so it's very exciting. So with that, I'll need a motion.
I move that we approve RFP 81-22-04.
And I'll need a second.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second. All members in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. All right. Got anything for us on finance committee? There we go.
I believe Ms. Young does. Mr. President, members of the board, I've been trying to get pin the auditors down for an entrance conference, but for some reason this year he's feeling like he wants to have more looked at before we meet, which I was confused because I don't feel like we've ever done this before, but he's doing something a little bit different, I guess. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, I'll get on him again and see when we can do it. I will share that they will be here on Monday, June 27th, so next Monday, to do the fuel, to dip the fuel tank and check fuel inventory and to check food service inventory. So Cheryl and Katie have been notified of that, and so hopefully they'll be all ready to go. They usually are.
Could you remind me who's on the audit committee?
Well, I was just going to say, we did have Miss Prudencio step down last year, and we haven't replaced that seat. We had somebody in mind who then moved out of state, so we do need, we need to find somebody else for the audit committee. So it would be Elizabeth,
She's pointing out there.
Linda, I believe,
Huh?
or was it Wendy?
I think
It was Wendy, okay. Elizabeth, Wendy, you, of course, me, Saul Araki, who I guess I should make sure still wants to be involved. He hasn't told me he wants to step down. And then it was Miss Prudentia who had asked to step down last year.
That's
We
some
did.
feelers.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And we will need to have a finance committee meeting probably soon too. We haven't had one in a while, so.
Okay.
Should we move on? We should move on to personnel. Director of Personnel, Board Report. Got anything for us?
President Armijo, members of the board, Superintendent Salazar, I do have some updates on the list of vacancies I'd like to give to you guys today. So, first of all, I'm always knock on wood.
Yeah.
Something happens in the afternoon. But I'm very happy, obviously, to see that this is a short list compared to this time last year. So we're moving along pretty well, it seems like, and even moving even faster and in a positive direction. Mr. Adams had interviewed yesterday for the vacant art position, and he's just waiting on some reference checks. He's happy to offer the applicant that he interviewed, so hopefully we get a move on that. At Moriarty Middle School, the physical education teacher interviews were today, and we have an offer of employment going out to one of the candidates who is a veteran physical education teacher moving to the Edgewood area from Rio Rancho. So that's very nice. Moriarty Elementary School, we have an applicant who is going to be interviewing Thursday or Friday. They're trying to get her tied down to a time, so that's good. South Mountain Elementary School, as the meeting was happening now, we actually got an applicant. So Ms. Romero and her crew will be calling that person this afternoon. This morning, we got a permission to hire for a diag, so we'll have a diag, so that's really good. Some heartburn still with statewide with our PTs, our OTs, speech language. They're very hard to find right now in all different areas, not just education. And then with our, going down the list again, the custodian that we've opening, we've had a sub there. We're pleased with the work that she's done, and we're going to be talking to her about offering her a full-time position coming in the new fiscal year. We got an applicant yesterday for the custodian position at Route 66, so Amanda Montes is working to get her here as quickly as possible so we can get her at least in the building and do some sub work for us to see how it works out. And we have an offer for employment for a maintenance position yesterday and one that's pending right now. So hopefully this is even smaller going when we meet again in July. And that's the update that I have.
We are in the kind of middle of the process of the hiring of the Moriarty Middle School principal position. We had a couple of interviews, and we will be scheduling a couple more for the first of next week. So we are working on that process. So.
Thank you. I was in that one.
All right. been working really hard. And everybody's very excited because today the email went out to the staff to accept their contract for the 3% increase from the last quarter, the sign-on bonus or the stipend, sign-on stipend for next year. So I think everybody kind of forgot about it. So they're very excited. It's like, ooh, we're getting an extra check in June. So it was kind of like Christmas. Patricia said about it, so she's very excited. People are kind of like, what is this? And when she tells them, they're very excited.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So we will have them start signing those contracts today and keep track of those that don't sign in the next couple of days and start making phone calls and emails to make sure they get it signed so they can get paid next week already.
Yeah.
The end of June. Wow. And I stand for any questions or comments?
Questions for Mr. Miguel? Good job, Mr. Miguel.
Good work.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
And he even took some vacation days last week. Wow. Which is unusual for personnel.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
He did so good, it's like, heck
I'm
yeah.
doing that, let me do that. Thank you.
All right, moving on to support services, special projects, and other items. I just questioned that.
Yeah, if there's any questions.
Any questions for support services? I would just say that, you know, my out of the whole board report, I mean, I think the one thing that gave me heart palpitations was the status of transportation and bus drivers,
Right.
you know, just, you know, it's frustrating that we're down to single digits, 1 or 2, and it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm just really hoping that maybe some of the things outlined, you know, might yield some additional drivers. I was just curious, I mean, I know in the past, personnel helps with that. I mean, we also have our transportation coordinator looking. Is there any other avenues or outlets, anything, recruiting avenues for bus drivers?
President Armijo, members of the board, so our 2 SBDI trainers that we have this year have been setting up our own quote-unquote job fair type of recruiting days. They did attend a job fair last Saturday, at the Lions Club. It was put on for a local job fair, so they did attend that. What they've asked, and we've given approval, and we're waiting on some banners actually to be printed out and whatnot. They want to go and hit the roads and park a bus at Crossley Park, put the banner up there, set up their own booth, and on a Saturday and sit there for 2, 3, 4 hours, and then go down to Edgewood and do the same in one of the lots that we get approval for. So to do some traveling roadshow recruitment locally. There aren't any other job fairs that we know of locally that will be put on, but that's those 2 ladies have done a tremendous job of trying to get some more bus drivers and bus aides as well as needed.
We should have some flyers on the bulletin boards at the truck stops.
And they
Those
asked,
people all have seen
well, they
it.
asked, so part of
But are
the,
those people that we want with our kids?
I mean, very stringent background checks.
yeah, and that's part of the process as well. They were needing approval to go around and put some flyers up, simple and contact, and they're meeting with people one-on-one even over the summer now, you know, whether or not in contract or not.
Definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, I'd look forward to see our bus parked out there, our big banners, we're working on those getting printed and sitting out there and having a little job fair, recruiting.
Yeah, they want more bus drivers more than anybody, so they don't have to drive other routes. Instead of having to rotate their routes. Yeah.
All right. If there's no further questions, I think we'll move on to the out-of-state transportation request.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, our FFA students are going to be going to nationals in Indianapolis, Indiana, and they are requesting approval for that. When is that trip? Is it in July? Is it this fall?
It's this fall,
October, September,
October or something.
Okay. But they want to make sure that they get on there early. So I appreciate them doing that. So I recommend that you approve the out-of-state transportation for FFA students to Indianapolis, Indiana.
We have a recommendation from Superintendent Salazar to approve the FFA students transportation request to Indianapolis. I'll need a motion.
I so move. That's October 22nd through the 30th.
All right. And I'll need a second.
Second.
All members in favor say aye. Aye. All right. Distracted with looking at some-
They're flying.
Yes, they are flying. Yeah, there's too many of them to, they'd have to take a bus and a bus driver hand them that much.
We already have problems with bus drivers.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
It'd take them 2 days to get there and back.
Moving on to board policy.
So, Mr. President, members of the board, this is the second read for 3 board policies. Mr. Viviano and I did take off from the advisory number 231, the teacher residency program. We didn't feel comfortable with exactly how that was written, and I have a call in to John Kennedy, the attorney that is in charge of this, so we may be bringing that back in July. But for this meeting, we have policy DO, the advisory 229 is disposition of school facilities to charter schools. We have advisory 230, policy GBA, equal employment opportunity, and then advisory 232, policy GE, retire or return to work. So if there's any questions.
And I think we would like to do these individual.
Okay.
All right. Any questions? This is our second read.
That's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, so. All right, so you have a recommendation for us?
So
We'll start with 221.
anyone do Jason really?
Yeah.
Mr. President, members of the board, I recommend that you approve policy service advisory 229, disposal of school facilities to charter schools.
So we have a recommendation from Superintendent Salazar to approve policy service advisory number 229. I'll need a motion. And I'll need a second.
I'll second.
All right, so a motion and a second. All members in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. There was no names on it?
No, I'm sorry.
Aye. Okay, so then we will move on to the policy 230.
Mr. President, members of the board, I would recommend that you approve policy service advisory 230, policy GBA, equal employment opportunity.
Do you have any questions? All right, if there are no questions, we have a recommendation from Superintendent Salazar to approve policy service advisory number 230 for policy GBA. I need a motion. And a second.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All members in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Nay. All right. And we will move on to number 232.
Okay, Mr. President, members of the board, I recommend that you approve policy service advisory 232, policy GE, retiree return to work.
All right, so I have a recommendation from Superintendent Salazar to approve policy service advisory number 232, policy GE. Any questions? If there's no questions, I'll need a motion.
I so move.
All right, I'll need a second.
I'll second.
All right, so I have a motion and a second. All members in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, aye. Motion passes. All right, moving on to advanced planning.
The only thing that we have under advanced planning is the NSBA 2020 leadership retreat. That was the Taos one that's coming up. Everyone said that no one's attending, so we're good with that. I don't know if there's anything else. The only thing is it July, if we want to keep the midday meeting, or is everybody okay with that?
Can I just back up on that training though? So this one was, I think, gonna be the completion of this year's training? And
That's
then,
correct, and that
if I
starts
understood it
over
right, and it starts
July
over
1.
again. Is there some place that you, I know they said you had to have so many points of training. Patty's the one that keeps track of that?
Yeah,
Okay.
she'll find out.
And you would let me know if I was, I think I'm good for what I've attended,
Yes, we
okay.
will double check them and compare those records to make sure everybody's good on their hours.
Okay. Wasn't sure how that all worked.
Yeah.
Patty will take care of it.
She'll take, she does. Thank you, Patty.
She takes care of all of us.
All of
so
us,
that's
that's right. Thank you. Oh, one other thing, can I ask about the senior thing? Did they get approved to have their parking spaces individualized for next year?
You know, we haven't really talked about details of that. 'cause
Mr.
that's-
President, members of the board, I've approved it with the list of things Mrs. Salzar needs to get me before we do it.
Yeah, we're gonna have to work on that.
We need the parking lot cleaned, we need the stripes repainted.
That's when you get those seniors out there to do
Yeah,
it
they paint their
themselves.
own, paint their own, paint, decorate.
So I'll get my,
Personalized.
you know what it's like taking care of your one high schooler.
I know.
So
Well-
I'll get 140 seniors out there and just take care of
Seniors out
business.
there that box off half the parking lot.
Or have those parents come
Yeah.
decorate their kids' spots.
Well, you know,
Josh, get on that.
Good idea.
There's seniors in each room.
No, I will give it a shot.
We needed a street. The kids got, during senior week, they got to paint the street and, put their names and, graffiti, whatever. And it was a whole family affair, mom, dad, parents, the artistic aunt, whoever would come, and the city would come and black it out every year, the section that they were gonna do, so they'd have a fresh canvas and start, and everybody painted, and
I know, and this on horseshoes.
We've done that
coming
here,
down.
we've done that here.
No, they did it in Tucumcari when, my kids were there,
Okay.
And I miss our horseshoes coming into the high school.
I know, we've talked about that, we need to get our, art teacher back, out there painting those horseshoes with her kids, so. So we'll get Clay out there.
Is that street painting something you contemplated for here? Because I remember reading something about what can we do to make graduation more special
Yes.
for kids?
So he's gonna do the parking lot, and then we're gonna get our art classes to get back out there and get those horseshoes on that.
Okay.
Because I think that's really cool too, I think the horseshoes look cool. I kinda miss them.
I miss the horseshoes. So I think you had asked about the midday.
Yes.
Oh,
Squirrel.
I'm good
I'm
with
half
it.
asleep right now, I won't lie. I had early calls this morning,
Oh.
extremely early, so I'm.
So good thing we're having it early, so you
Yeah.
can sleep tonight.
I still have to get some work, but, I think I've been in 4 counties today, so.
oh my.
Yes. No, it's not. You better send it.
We've never sent anybody to that.
What?
The one in house.
Oh, the one in top?
Yeah. I don't know why, but maybe because everybody just came
Well,
off the.
I would have gone, but I'm out of town and I don't want to come back.
Well, I'm just saying, it's coming right off of law conference and then our board retreat, so it's a lot, it's a lot.
But
I think
I
it's
mean,
very misleading.
Oh, really? There's no retreating about it. For in town.
so the one in top, yeah. Have you ever gone?
No.
No? Okay.
I just-
Oh, you said
I know
you
a
never
few
said
board
that.
members that have,
Okay.
And they've not.
Yeah.
I just wanna make sure the Wednesday meeting.
Yeah, oh, right. She's like, bring it back. Bring us back in, President. So I'm fine with it.
You're good?
I'm
Albert, worked all right?
Anything.
I'm happy.
so the towns retreat.
Somebody wants to go.
No, I do not.
Yes. So I'm going with the retreat.
So is there's
Not a
training?
small, not a small.
Albert said we're gonna have peanut butter and jelly.
Okay. All right, I'll stop peanut butter and jelly next week.
Next time for sure.
Yeah.
Moving on to adjourn, I guess.
Okay, so, yes. Mr. President, members of the board, I want to thank you, and I recommend that we adjourn our meeting.
Recommendation, Superintendent Salazar for adjournment.
So moved.
And a second.
I'll second.
Yeah, motion and second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.